Yeah, is that better? Cool. Okay. I know I meant to get on like 10 till, I'm sorry.
Hello, what's going on?
How are you?
All right, how's it going, Dave? How's it going there, Bethany? How's everyone?
Good, how are you?
All right. I'm doing pretty well, I had to step outside.
We, the members of the Libertarian Party, challenge the cult of the omnipotent state and defend the rights of the individual. We hold that all individuals have the right to exercise sole dominion over their own lives and have the right to live in whatever manner they choose, so long as they do not forcibly interfere with the equal rights of others to live in whatever manner they choose. Governments throughout history have regularly operated on the opposite principle, that the state has the right to dispose of the lives of individuals and the fruits of their labor. Even within the United States, all political parties other than our own grant to government the right to regulate the lives of individuals and seize the fruits of their labor without their consent. We, on the contrary, deny the right of any government to do these things and hold that where governments exist, they must not violate the rights of any individual, namely, 1, the right to life. Accordingly, we support the prohibition of the initiation of physical force against others. 2, the right to liberty of speech and action. Accordingly, we oppose all attempts by government to abridge the freedom of speech and press, as well as government censorship in any form. And 3, the right to property. Accordingly, we oppose all government interference with private property, such as confiscation, nationalization, and eminent domain, and support the prohibition of robbery, trespass, fraud, and misrepresentation. Since governments, when instituted, must not violate individual rights, we oppose all interference by government in the areas of voluntary and contractual relations among individuals. People should not be forced to sacrifice their lives and property for the benefit of others. They should be left free by government to deal with one another as free traders, and the resultant economic system, the only one compatible with the protection of individual rights, is the free market.
Hey, how's everyone doing? Welcome to another interview on Libertarian Dave. I'm here with the great and illustrious Evolve and our candidate for state senator, Bethany Hatch, District 29, right here in El Paso, Texas. She's a graduate from Texas Tech, Red Raiders, guns up. Also a small business owner. She sits on the board of the Caldwell Foundation, which helps out the El Paso Community Foundation here in El Paso. She's also a former board member of the Professional Animal Care Certification Council, and currently running for state senator against our friend Cesar Blanco. He's and who's currently sitting as Jose Rodriguez, who's vacating his seat. I'm getting feedback from somebody. I hope it's not me. Okay, now I can turn on the desktop audio. You guys should sound great. So Bethany, the first thing I like to ask is with any of my political candidates I get on here, the first thing I want to ask is, why are you running for office?
Honestly, one of the biggest reasons I'm running is because I'm tired of this district losing. I'm tired of not having true representation in Austin. We are constantly behind the rest of Texas in terms of economic development, opportunity, and I think it's time that we send someone to Austin who will fight for the district.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. Not that I...
Bethany, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What could you talk a little bit more about your business? Because
you're breaking up pretty bad, dude.
No, that you
You're breaking up, dude. You need to shut some stuff off in the background or something on your phone. He can't even hear us, I don't think. You froze up. Yeah, you need to get a better signal. Get away from the building. I think he wanted you to elaborate a little bit more on how El Paso kind of gets sent out to the wayside in Austin. How we haven't really been represented, and I know one of the reasons is because it's predominantly dominated by Republicans in the Senate, and we've had not the sole Democrat, but one of the few Democrats. So it's really hard for them to get anything done when it's such a partisan politics going on in Austin. But I mean, that's just my take from it. So I think that's what he wanted you to elaborate more on.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that. I think that the majority of Texas, of the legislature, is Republican, so it's tough when we send Democrats out there who are not able to, or usually willing to, negotiate or fight for the district, because they are in the minority in the legislature, and so they can't get a lot done. Mm-hmm.
And I was on the same ticket as you, running against you and Cesar Blanco until we've had some. It's difficult for third parties to get on the ballot. We're restricted because the old parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, they both, I'm not saying that they don't want the competition, but it seems like they don't want the competition. So they kind of throw all these little monkey wrenches at us every election cycle, and I got caught up in one. So. But I mean, it's fine. I really feel like we've talked before, and I really feel like we had really similar ideas on what we wanted to get done for El Paso, anyways. So I was looking, and I found something that was really interesting, and I don't know if I've shared this with you before, but I can't remember a time when a Democrat did not win the state Senate seat here in El Paso, and so. Matter of fact, I think the Democrat is so confident that he's going to win it. I don't think he's even campaigned. As a matter of fact, the mayor even kind of wrote him in already, right? In a statement, The mayor said that he was, senator-elect, and, me and you both were like, what? Wait a second. There hasn't been an election that we don't know about yet, right? So I mean, there's so much confidence that he's going to win, and yet he's getting these, multi-$1,000. He got a $20,000 donation from the CEO or the CFO of a gas and oil company that's responsible for the Eagle Shelf in southern Texas. And I'm like, well, if he's not helping him campaign, because obviously he's not even campaigning, then what's that $20,000 buying him? So it's just it's that kind of me and you both being Christians, when it's that kind of deception that really bothers me, because God never deceives. Deception only comes from one place,
Back.
Hey, welcome back. So
I'm back.
So I know you're also a small business owner. One of the questions I was thinking about when I was getting ready for this, because I know what kind of business you were in, one of those rare businesses that we can hear you.
Yes. Okay.
Better, yeah. You're better now.
Cool deal.
You're one of the few businesses that, besides the airline industry, that was really harmed by the travel ban restrictions that came from the pandemic. I don't know if you'd like to, talk on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So for anyone who doesn't know, my business is a pet care facility called the Pet Barracks out in Northeast El Paso. So we do dog and cat boarding, daycare, training, and grooming. And probably 80% of our revenue comes from pet boarding. And so when we were hit really hard at spring break, because we had a ton of reservations, people ready to go out of town, go on vacation, and then the closure started happening, and we went from over 100 reservations to around 20, and that was a big hit for us, because we really rely on these big bumps in revenue to get us through our slower times. Mm-hmm. So it's been hard.
Yeah, still hanging in there though, right?
Yes.
That's good.
It could be worse. There's millions of business owners who have already closed their doors permanently. So I certainly, while I'm frustrated, I can't complain too much.
Yeah, driving around El Paso, you see a lot of them close down. I'm like, A lot
Now,
more than normal.
now, Bethany, were you in favor of the? Were you in or not in favor of the? Far as the business shutdown, I know a lot of people. There were so many different sides, especially here in Texas, as some kind of justified, safety, Corona. It had to for a time, or what was your stance on that? Is it something that was needed during the hype of Corona, or not at all?
You know what? I think that to address that question, we need to kind of reference the Constitution, and nowhere does it have give the authority to elected officials to decide who is essential and non-essential. And I have a major problem with anyone saying that somebody is not an essential worker or business when every single paycheck that comes in is essential for an individual or a family. So while I know that the coronavirus is absolutely a real virus, and I think that the way that we handled it, the way our elected officials handled it was the wrong way to do it. So I don't agree with the shutdown.
Okay, at no point.
No.
Of it. Okay.
I told you we agreed on a lot of things. I agree. I think it still is being handled ridiculously. I mean, the now, now $250 or $500 fine for anybody caught in one of your stores that's not wearing a mask. I mean, yeah, that's going to help businesses. I mean, I don't understand. It's getting as a libertarian, because we believe in the smallest possible government, maximum individual liberties. I mean, our stance is, you get to make the decision. You're a grown up, and you get to make the decision on how much risk you're willing to take, and that goes throughout your whole life. I mean, whether it's entrepreneurship or whether it's a virus, you choose how much risk you're willing to take. For you and your family. I mean, same thing with whether you want to carry a gun or not carry a gun. That's a choice that you make on how much risk you're willing to take, and every time I get on and start reading the news, I'm just like, wow, how far we've come, right? that hill for libertarians is looking taller and taller. So, that's why I'm hoping that we can get more liberty-minded people into every office from local, all the way up to the presidency. People that are more interested instead of how they look, rather than, granting the people the freedom to succeed and the freedom to fail. I think you have the same mentality. How did you feel about? Today I got a text message that the governor's now issuing. Oh, you did. You posted a tweet about it, I think. The governor's now issuing mandates that everybody has to wear a mask now. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, he walked back his statement that wearing a mask was he didn't want to infringe on individual liberty. Mm-hmm. And he said, on June 15th or 17th, he said that. And then he walked that back by executing this mandate now requiring the individual to wear a mask and face a $250 fine after your first morning. And I posted about it, and there's a lot of fear out there about the virus, and so people, it kind of goes one of two ways. Either people are really on board with that they should be mandated, or that it shouldn't. There's not really much of an in between. But it comes down to, again, just the constitutional authority that our elected officials have. And what we're just continually seeing is them stepping outside of that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
I do want to ask there, Bethany, just kind of getting back, because with regards to your stance on not shutting down, and because it was not the popular stance. So what I want to know is how would someone like, someone like yourself, you get that Senate seat and someone come back at you, how respond if they come at you and say something in regards to, hey, but instead, you didn't care for it. They say something along the lines of, you didn't care for, you didn't, we had Corona all out and you stood for allowing people to go out mass. You didn't want business to shut down. One of the big arguments with libertarians, a lot of people say that they're selfish. They only think of themselves and whatnot. But I don't know, how would you respond to someone, because that seems to be a big argument? Well, you got to care for others. It's not about, if you don't protect yourself, in these times, they'll call you everything from a murderer to selfish to, how do you respond to that hostility?
My first thing is just to realize that those accusations are coming out of a place of fear, out of mass propaganda push on. And again, the virus is not propaganda. That's not what I'm saying, but just the fear behind it. It's always about the negativity. It's not talking about, they don't focus on the recovery rate or how many people tested negative. It's always about the negative side of it. And so I would respond to that just by having, civil discourse. That's what our country is sorely lacking right now, and talking about individual choice, and that it's absolutely acceptable to promote safe choices, to be able to inform people and tell them the risks, tell them which elderly, immunocompromised, certain groups of people are more likely to be affected by it, and share it from an informational standpoint, and then let people make a choice. And the truth is that poverty kills more people than the coronavirus will. And so by going forward with shutting down businesses in the face of people potentially losing their life in a virus, we're really looking at negative effects in the long term, whereas we can really just focus on encouraging personal responsibility, good hygiene, and protecting those who are more at risk.
I see. Yeah.
Be quiet.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
My kids were coming in here, so and they were getting loud outside the door. I don't know if you could hear them, but so, they probably heard Volv in here, so they thought maybe he snuck in or something. That's an excellent point that you brought up about, and I've said that before when this thing first started, when they first shut businesses down. I'm like the suicide rates, the domestic violence rates, the alcohol consumption went up 55%, and along with increased alcohol consumption is DUI rates and domestic violence and just flat out violence and stuff. So all this stuff increased because of what government did, instead of just allowing the laws of nature and God and grown adults to make decisions on their own. I think it would have made and that's a stat that we probably will never see, because it's not something that politics and the media are going to want to advertise as how much they failed during this pandemic. Maybe 10 years down the road, we'll see the statistic come out that, this many people died related to poverty or these other things during this pandemic. But yeah, it's just a sad fact. And and the fact is viruses have been around, technically longer than we have. So, we were like the last thing that God made. So chances are virus has been around longer than us. So, and this is not how traditionally we have fought viruses since the beginning of human existence. So, it's just really, this thing is really just, it's been really strange.
Yeah.
Been really strange. So, I don't even know what to go about. I did so many podcasts and stuff on. They started calling me the Corona Channel for a while. I did so many talking about this because it was so significant. I think it's so significant, the amount of constitutional liberties that have been just snatched away in the midst of a pandemic based on emergency orders. I responded to a libertarian's post today and I said, it's basically shown us that our liberty, in the face of an emergency order, our liberties are a farce and the Constitution is disposable. And if we can hope for anything good to come out of this pandemic, it's going to be Supreme Court decisions that strengthen the Constitution and force legislators to specifically define what those emergency powers are going to be. Because it doesn't seem like, it just seemed like you have ultimate power. You're a dictator. You establish an emergency order, and then, what are they using for a basis? Apparently it isn't loss of life, because at the time they established the emergency orders, there was not a single loss of life, and they were already saying, well, it's an emergency. But why?
Right.
Because it's in preparation. It was like they saw Katrina coming off of the Gulf of Mexico. They established it. That's a little bit different. You know what I mean? Katrina, you knew that there was going to be devastation. There was too much unknown around this, so. But yeah, I agree with that completely. Then forgive me, I go on my rants too. So, so yeah, I appreciate you coming on here. I know you wanted to address, and so I haven't looked into this completely. So maybe you can help me out with it. I guess they're banning fireworks now for Fourth. As of tonight, right? I think you can no longer sell them tonight, or I don't know.
Yeah, 3 p.m. That was the cutoff, and then until Sunday afternoon.
So, and then you can start buying them again. So we're just canceling 4th of July now.
Essentially, it doesn't make sense. It's a nonsensical mandate. I can understand if we were in a fire, if there was a big danger, if we're in a drought, in a forest, or, I can understand that. You don't want things to burn down, but this is the desert. It's always dry here. And so using the wildfire excuse to really prohibit gatherings or to discourage gatherings is what is essentially what it's doing. And it's just, it makes no sense.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's ridiculous. So, I know. That's what I'm saying. So you could buy them all the way up until 3 p.m. today, and it was okay. It's just for the 4th of July, no fireworks. That doesn't make it, because people are still going to gather. I think people have already had it with the no gathering thing, missing birthdays and missing graduations and stuff, and that's the thing is, you've taken a free people, and now you've oppressed them, and then you've allowed them a little bit of leeway, and now you're trying to oppress them again. And then they're wondering why the protest and stuff got violent so quickly and so easily, and it's because of that cycle of oppression and freedom. That's where these violent, because some of the people that I never thought that like Evolve, he's a really mellow-tempered guy. He's even-tempered. It's hard to get him mad, but there's been points during this thing where he's been fed up, you know what I mean? And if it's happening to people that are fairly mellow-tempered, you think of some of those really high-strung people that they got to be coming out of their wits, So and then you got 4th of July weekend coming up, and I thought the emergency order. Let me read it to everybody, because I thought it was so hypocritically ironic, if that makes sense. So it says the state of Texas now mandates all residents wear masks while inside buildings that are open to the public and outdoors when it's not possible to maintain 6 feet of distance from people outside of your household, punishable by a $250 fine. And then it goes on to say, this Independence Day, we are depending on you to help slow the spread of this deadly virus. No, you're not. You're forcing us through tyrannical means called the law in order to obey your dictatorial mandates on Independence Day. I just thought that was just... I sent it to LP Texas and was like, you guys have to say something about that. That is just so... This Independence Day, we're relying on you. No, you're not. You're relying on your threat of a $250 fine. That's what you're relying. If you're relying on us, you would have just said, hey, could y'all please just wear a mask? And just left it at that, And these mandates, and that's the whole thing, is that people get that confused too. It's not a matter of civil responsibility. Now it's a matter of, once they back up their orders with the threat of fines or jail time, now it has become oppressive and tyrannical. It takes civil responsibility away. Now I'm no longer being civilly responsible by wearing a mask. Now I'm scared because I'm going to go to jail or get fined. So
yeah, and I think also it's important to note that these mandates have come about in a way that completely subverts our Constitution. So our governor should have called a special session of the legislature, and they should have been the one to address this. There should have been discussion, bipartisan legislation proposed. I still would have had a problem with certain mandates because, again, going back to Constitution and what the authority is. But now we're seeing unconstitutional mandates come through in a way that completely subverted our process. And I'm worried about the precedent that sets.
yeah, well, because of this now emergency power that the governor has, it's not necessary. So, and that there's no necessity for it, he's not going to do it because then it just seems like, well, you're wasting time. But the fact is there's a reason why we have this representative democracy that we have, and that's because everybody, each individual senator like yourself, you would be representing El Paso. So if your constituency thought, yes, we need to mandate the mask, then it would be up to you to represent the constituency, and then it would be throughout Texas that each constituency would voice their opinion whether they should be mandated or not, and and then the governor would put in his 2 cents. But I mean, that's the way it's supposed to work. But these emergency orders, I mean, that's the way the Constitution's written. But these emergency orders have just thrown all that out the window. And now this is what a dictatorship looks like. It's one single individual, or dishing out orders and everybody being forced to follow them. And luckily we're only getting a taste of it because hopefully we'll never see the full evil of what that could look like. But yeah, and it's going on, and it's funny because another thing that you're actually seeing in relation to this thing is you're seeing how the states still do have more power than the federal government, because you see how limited President Trump is and what he can do through executive order and just saying what he wants. But governors and mayors are just going wild, man.
Right.
Welcome back. Your audio is still connecting. So another thing I usually like to ask while he's still getting connected. Yeah, you're muted now. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted. 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 He's not gonna get it. He said he's at one of his schools. That's right. Okay, you unmuted yourself, but we still can't hear you.
Okay.
There you are.
There you go.
Okay, sorry. I'm now resorted to using. He's
finally got permission. He's finally got permission to start some of his youth programs back up. So he's trying to get some summer camp stuff going. So he's
so we got so much going on in our parks and our schools, and then even with the new mandate. Sorry, I know the definition of my video is going to be very bad. I resorted to using one of the laptops webcam, which is bad, but that's fine.
It actually looks better than what your phone was looking like. So
ouch, that hurt.
Well, it was because of the signal. I think you had a bad signal.
No. Oh yeah, and with the mandate that the governor had done, now they're going around. We had someone come around to our park site. Because we have 5 park sites that are in operation 2 right now. So the city's got like patrols going around to all the parks, and he had like a little booklet, and he's like writing down numbers and names, and he's asking for the director and who's there. And he had told, this is from what one of my staff members had said happened today, had said that the mayor has stated that they have discretion on each park or whatnot on how many can be at a park depending on the numbers in that community. So the particular park that we are at, that the person that is in charge of that rec center is actually saying that he's been deemed and given some power to elect how many people at his park that he can have, and But I told them to go back out there, and I will be out there tomorrow. And I hope that he comes out again, and we'll deal with that. So but they told them to that site to kind of shut down. But anyway, it was just weird to me that
You're gonna be spending a lot of time in
who
court.
are these powers? Like, where are these powers? Who's creating powers now? Like, where's this?
To be honest, I don't know if you've looked into it, Bethany, but from what I've gathered, at all these different levels, because of the natural disasters that we've had, like Katrina and stuff, and the ones on the East Coast and stuff, that governors and mayors have been granted emergency powers, and it basically says that, you know, in cases of emergency, of imminent threat to the population, they can take control. The granting of the power is like, I know for our mayor, the city council has to vote on it. It has to be 8-0. So it has to be a unanimous vote by city council members to grant the mayor these emergency powers. And it has to be re-voted on every month. So to continue, and I'm sure there's probably something similar at the state level too. So that's where they're getting the power from. And,
there's that, but then there's also the power that we, the people, allow them to have, right? So I think that it's a government by the people, of the people. We should be the ones to set how much we are willing to accept, right? And so that's where we probably should have been, years ago. A long time ago, against things like this, things that subvert the Constitution. And because, again, they really only can use the power that we allow them to have as the ones who vote them into office and as the ones who are supposed to be holding them accountable.
Yeah, and for the record, you opposing Governor Abbott. Governor Abbott is the leader of the Republican Party in Texas. So you opposing him says a lot about how you put character first. You know, you're putting, you know, you're putting.
I like that.
Character first, you know, over party. You know what I mean? It's principle over party. You know, that's what I was trying to say.
People over politics every single time.
Yeah. So that says a lot. Kid Play 360 said you're pretty.
Yeah, I kind of, and here's my thing, because I'm not Republican, but I do have a question for Bethany, and that brings up another question, because I over the years I kind of know, especially a lot of what they do is always predictable to me, and kind of know what's going to be passed, what's going to be done, and kind of ahead of time. And with regards to you, Bethany, I honestly want to know, far as what would be like the first thing, like you're elected now. That first week, what does it look like? What is your prime? What is a big thing? What is the most essential thing that you're working on? I know in your district, there is a lot of all the districts, there's a lot of problems and wasteful spending and a lot of the different things. But I want to know what you're doing day one, and that way we can kind of see if the parallels are quite vivid with regards to the Republican Party and what they're standing and where they're viewing.
That's one of my standard questions too. Is what do you plan on doing day one when you get into office?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So honestly, it's not going to start day one. It's going to start the day I get elected, right? So in November, start working on legislation, start reaching out to people, and start creating those connections so that on day one, we're already steps ahead. We're already ready. We're not just getting started. And I have to say that, through the process of campaigning and meeting people, my priorities have shifted just a little bit. Not my beliefs at all, but my priorities. Because I would love to say one of the first things that I would put in, constitutional carry, no question. I think that it's sad that Texas is behind 16 other states in doing this when we're supposed to be the most gun-friendly state. So that's a big one. But then I would also represent Hudspeth County. So it's not just El Paso, and they have a major concern about their water. And they're looking at how are they going to continue getting water into their county. That for me is not something that we should have a county anywhere in America that is worried about their water. That is something that should have been addressed before they even get scared about it, right? So that's something else. Yeah, exactly. And that's something that, you know, I didn't know it until I went out there. Because living in El Paso, we might be in the same district, but we have different priorities. We have different concerns and experiences. So hearing that, that's another thing that I would really want to address early on. And, you know, they've had representation being sent to Austin, same as us, and no one talks about it. So, so something like that is another thing that I would kind of push through at the very beginning, but definitely something like constitutional carry and then addressing those real problems that people are facing.
And if I could elaborate a little bit, and I think that says a lot about it. Again, principle over politics is because Hudspeth County is for those viewers that don't know, is a very small county. If she's going to get elected, it's going to come from El Paso County, but she's representing five counties, right, in the area. Yeah. So Hudspeth County is a smaller county. And, you know, she could get elected without one vote from Hudspeth County, but the concern for that county as being part of who she represents says a lot. But constitutional carry, for those of you that don't understand, somebody asked, you know, Ms. Hatch, what is your stance on gun control? And constitutional carry, for those that don't understand what that means, it means that you have a constitutional right to carry a gun, that you don't need a license, you don't need anything, you just need a gun and a body, and you're allowed to carry by the Constitution. So it's your constitutionally protected right of self-defense. So that's when somebody talks about constitutional carry, that's what it is no license required. The Constitution is your license to carry. So I just want to...
Just really quickly before you move, it says that meeting time is almost over. Is it going to shut it down?
It shouldn't. I just hit... I forgot to hit record on it. If it does, I'll restart it up again. I'm not on the paid Zoom thing, so it's like 40 minutes. But it should be all right.
Yeah, it'll be okay.
If not, like I said, I will just... I see that. It'll say remaining time 1 minute and 45 seconds. So if it does shut down, it'll only take a second to restart it. You can click the same link and jump back in, and we'll be right back in business again. Okay. So I'm not paying Zoom for this, so...
Yeah.
Because if they had like a really cheap one and I was doing interviews every week, then I probably would. But I don't do this.
I do want to go back to it with Bethany. Wanted her to explain a little bit because if that's going to be her first one of her first priorities with regards to constitutional carry, that's a big one. And there's a lot that oppose that, said that, you know, that unlawful license to kill, some say a lot, you know, on that other side, they just say it's dangerous. I mean, what are your what are you saying to the opposed side? What to some of those arguments?
I mean, I think that we need to talk about the fact that Republicans have held the majority in the legislature and we still don't have this passed, and it's something that's been a big platform issue for many years. So my question would be why has it not been passed? What is holding us back? And having those conversations and really just addressing, you know, talk about the concerns, but also talk about the fact that we're supposed to be one of the most gun-friendly states in the nation. And again, we're trailing behind 16 other states. And so I want to know why.
Okay. And it's really, I know what you're saying, Evolve. I mean, it's really, this is a conversation we can have.
I mean, you don't think that Texas already have good laws for residents who want to carry in public?
One of the problems with licensing is, that was a good point. Yeah, it quit. Why is it taking so long for them to get back in? Hey, where am I at? Oh, I had to close Zoom and open it back up again. Yeah. Welcome back. Yep. They got me. You know, it's funny. It's you're muted still, but it's funny. Me and Evolve sat here and did a podcast for like an hour and a half, and it never died. And I think it was because I started recording right from the start, and I didn't start recording right from the start for this one.
Versus 3.
What's that?
I think it's different depending on how many participants you have.
Oh yeah, that's true. And now I got to get it to come back up in OBS too, and I have no idea why it didn't do that automatically. There we are. All right, so he just messaged me like, did it quit? Yeah. What do you? Because he's been crashing so much. But yeah, and I think what he was getting at was the argument against the constitutional carry. No, he was just making sure it wasn't him. And the thing is the licensing laws are. Yeah. I got it fixed, Ruben. Ruben T. I think he's a follower of yours on Twitter. He's got a good question I'm going to come back to in a minute. I wanted to hit on this constitutional carry thing. The thing about licensing laws is licensing costs money, and you shouldn't have to pay for a constitutional right. In any constitutional right that you have to pay for is restrictive to the poor. And it's funny, what really bothers me about this, and I did a whole 7-minute video on it just this past week, because it's something I'm passionate about too, is it seems like the ones that live on the margins, the LGBTQ communities, the women, or those that could benefit most from carrying a gun, are the ones that usually side with the side that wants to restrict gun rights. And that's how good this propaganda has worked. The scary gun propaganda, and I think the only way we're really going to fight that is to embrace those that do carry, embrace people who conceal carry or open carry. Anytime I see anybody that's concealed carry, I'm usually concealed carry everywhere I go in public, especially during this pandemic, because like I said, people's tempers are short, and I'm not a good fighter and I'm not a big guy, so and it's my job, God has said it's my job to protect my family. So I take that job seriously, and I'm going to use whatever tools I can to accomplish that job. And I appreciate any other, good-natured citizen out there that wants to join me in the cause of protecting other good people. And I think until we embrace that and start thanking people for it, and it being a badge of honor, being out there carrying a gun, I think we have to have a complete shift in our mentality. And for the left, it's going to be really hard. Because they're so far from that. I mean, they just the fact that you tell them you have a gun in your home, and they're going to freak out,
Right, absolutely.
So, Ruben said, this is actually a really good question also. What sets you apart from your opponent? Well, the fact is you actually know who she is now, and you probably have no idea who her opponent is. Yeah. I don't.
I'd say one of the biggest things is that I'm not a career politician, nor do I have any desire to be. I want to be a representative of the people, and I also have unique experiences and education as a business owner, I guess. It's not real, I'm not a business degree, but being a business owner for over 5.5 years, I really understand the stifling regulations, how much they impact business, how much they impact growth. And that's something that my opponent doesn't have the knowledge about. And I think that that's something we really need to start looking at is when we want opportunity to come to the district, when we want businesses to succeed, which in turn allows the employees to succeed, then we really need to focus on what kind of regulation we're allowing to be passed and how it's stopping business growth. And a lot of the politicians, the career politicians that we have in Austin, they don't understand that.
Yeah, well, your pet grooming and boarding store, how many political campaigns did you contribute to last year for politicians in Austin? But big industry, big companies and stuff, major, Petco and stuff like that, your competition on the major market, the large corporations and stuff, now they're contributing significantly. So when they pass a regulation, into an industry like yours, you know, you're going to pull your hair out trying to figure out how to abide by this regulation, but the major corporations are just, you know, snap of their fingers and it's done. And that's the problem with government regulation and licensing it's a strangler on small business, but you know, Walmart and Target and Amazon don't have any trouble at all. It doesn't bother them at all. You know, it's like the airline industry got a bailout with all the travel bans and stuff. They were like, oh my God, the airline industry. But I mean, what kind of bailout did you get? You know, you lost, percentage wise, you probably lost a ton more than the airline industry did. You know, it's just, you know, it's just not, people just don't see it that way, you know? And that's why we need people like you out there saying this stuff. So it's like I said with your opponent receiving $20,000 from the CFO of a major oil and gas company, you know, that has business interests in Southern Texas. You know, why is that? Well, the reason is because now when regulations and licensing laws are going to be passed in Austin, you know, he's got that $20,000 contributor in the back of his mind, you know, whenever he's voting on these things or when he's writing these legislations and stuff. So, you know, and who has the small business, you know, in the back of their minds when they're writing legislation and stuff like that. I really appreciate that viewpoint from you. But yeah, I don't know if Evolve's coming back or not. Okay. But yeah, it's tough. Politics is tough. And sometimes, you know, I was really disappointed that I didn't that I'm not going to be on the ballot. At least it's about 99% sure, unless Texas Election Commission actually makes a major mistake and allow, you know, something slip by like that. But the problem is that I was supposed to be nominated at a district convention since I'm running for a district office. We did because we don't have a district party. We did all of our nominations at our county convention. Now the dates for these conventions are set in stone. They're set by the Texas Election Commission, so they have to be on these dates. Well, the date for our district was right at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, and so I was like, what's the point? It's going to be the same group of people voting for the same nominees, so, you know, we'll just use the nomination that we had at county. And people that have been involved longer than me were there, and they were like, yeah, we can do that. So at the time of the district convention came and passed, and then they were like, you didn't have a district convention. And I was like, no, we did everything at county. They're like, oh, no, you can't do that. You have to have a district convention. I was like, you can't. So over a couple of months it's been now, and it's been going through the works, and I guess they came back just past week and was like, yeah, that's not going to work. But and that's the reason why they do that, is because, you know, you make one mistake and you're not in, you know.
Yeah.
So, but it's okay. I feel like I got good representation now with you up there. So, you know how I feel about the career politicians as well.
Yeah.
You know, and is there term limits on state senate?
No, there is none.
Yeah. So that's probably why Jose Rodriguez is just stepping down. Like, I'm just throwing in the towel and.
Yeah, because I think he's hit the mark that he can receive pension. And I'm not going to say that that's why he's stepping down, because I don't know his intentions or his motivations. But, you know, you do have to be in a certain amount of time in order to receive a retirement, essentially. And so, you know, I guess retiring on taxpayer dollars for some people looks appealing. I think that no one should retire on taxpayer dollars, but that's just me.
It's good. It's good to have goals, right? Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, you should be, but not as an elected official. You know, I don't know, because then there's like, you know, a sheriff. A sheriff is an elected official also. Right. So yeah. But as like a politician, though, I don't know. A legislator, I guess you could say a legislator. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pensions for legislators.
And you're right. I mean, of course, by the time retirement comes around, most people do rely on that pension to be able to to make it through their retirement years. So there could be a case made either way, but I just have a problem when it's career politicians who do nothing for the people and then retire on a pension paid by the people. So I mean, at the very least, you should earn it somehow.
Yeah, and I think, you know, something else I think we've really lost track of is the importance of the taxpayer dollar. You know what I mean? It's you know, this is money that people have earned that government has confiscated. You know,
Right.
it's legalized theft. I mean, you know, the libertarians are always saying taxation is theft, and it's true. I mean, anytime you take something from somebody without their permission, that's theft, and that's exactly what taxation is. Nobody gives the government permission; they just take it. But it really is, it's a confiscation of people's hard-earned money. And through that confiscation process and the fact that people have worked hard for it, I think it should be one of the most important things that our legislators look at. Every single penny that they spend should be, you know, critically analyzed because of that fact. And that comes right into what Ruben here's got another question for you. Thank you for your answer on his last one about what makes you different from your opponent. He's a one last question. What is your stance on people who live in Mexico and attend school while subsidized by taxpayer money? Attend school in the U.S.
Right.
So say like people from Juarez come over and attend UTEP.
So I think that that's a major problem, especially because we do have standards for classroom sizes. And I have spoken to a lot of teachers whose classrooms are just overflowing, that they cannot provide the attention that students really deserve. And so, you know, when you have people crossing the border, using our public school system, but not paying into the fund that pays for that, because we pay for it through our property taxes. You know, it really hurts our students' ability to succeed. However, I have heard about a program, and I need to do more research on it, but there's a program, I think, that where a citizen from Mexico can pay to come into our public school system. I'm okay with that. I think that, you know, if they're paying their way, which would provide more funds to hire the teachers that are necessary, then why don't we encourage that? Especially, you know, if it's already there, if it's already an option, then why are we not making sure that that's the avenue that is being used for people to come over the border and study? So I just think that that it's something that definitely needs to be addressed, because it's setting our students up for failure by not providing the conditions where they can learn in the way that they're supposed to, when the teacher's time is too divided between an overflowing class.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I muted myself. Yeah, I got that. I don't believe in public schools at all, so
Yeah, well,
I think everybody should be paying.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, and that's another thing to talk about, is just the education system as a whole. You know, what about the parents who choose private school? So then they're paying for private school and they're paying through their property taxes for the education system, or people who don't have children. You know, the public school system, it's, of course, people, it's important to be educated, but, you know, at what expense? And especially when that education system is failing so many people.
it is. I honestly, we're putting our kids in private school starting this year, just because, you know, especially as much as I've gotten involved in politics and I've seen, and I just see how, you know, I don't want my kids' learning ability to be at the whims of politicians and media. I've seen now firsthand how much the media can control politics and how much politics controls what happens within our school systems, that I just don't want any part of it. So I'd rather put my kids in a place where they're where they can and you know, I'm putting them in a Christian school too, so they get that the educational moral backing of teachings of Christ as well. So
Right.
so, you know, but yeah, 45%. So El Paso, Texas has the second highest homestead property tax rate in the entire country amongst large cities, and 45% of that tax money on a $200,000 home, that's about $6,000 a year, and 45% of that goes to the school district. And you don't see it. You don't see it in the quality of education that's coming out. And if you took that money and put it into a private school system, you would see, for every one kid that the public schools could educate at a certain level, a private school could educate 5 of them at that level. It's ridiculous. And the statistics are all out there across the board. India is a great example of how private schools far exceed budgetary requirements and most of their country is educated by private schools. They have a very small minority that's educated by public schools in India. So.
Yeah.
What you got? I am the way is on now. He switched names on us. He's back on his phone.
I heard schools. I had to jump back on.
Did you want to talk schools?
No, you guys go ahead. I'm having a little issues here myself, but you guys can go ahead. I have my own little.
You're not gonna be able to give one of your speeches though, because you keep breaking up again.
I know. So just let me get to up here. You guys can go ahead.
Okay, so we're getting some good questions coming through chat, and I don't know how much time you got, but I know one of the other things we wanted to hit on is the social injustice and defund police, another big headline that's out there right now. If you'd like to address that, and then we'll get into some of these other questions that are being brought up.
Yeah.
Am I breaking up, Dave?
You're still breaking up. A little staticky. Like, check your connection in your phone. And your video is real jittery too.
And it was so good earlier.
Yeah, he was on the laptop though. You need to go back and get on the laptop, dude. Well, no, he's still widescreen, so he's still...
Yeah, it's still on the laptop.
Yeah. Work it out, man. Anyways, go ahead, Bethany.
So, the big push right now to defund the police is definitely something that has been dominating headlines and the talk in the political world. And I think that, I think it's the wrong conversation. I don't think that defunding is the right answer. I think that there's other things that we can look at in order to promote ethical policing. But when you're talking about taking funds away from the police officers, and then there's talks of sending people for domestic violence calls or such, just therapists or counselors versus a police officer. I just think that it would create dangerous situations for a lot of people.
So yeah, I've seen a study on what you're talking about, like sending counselors out. Like if somebody calls 911 with a homeless person doing something, or a domestic violence call, instead of sending the police, you would send counselors, to the house. Yeah, I could see how that could go good or bad. I honestly think that the problem is more that the police not knowing a thing about de-escalation of force or the escalation of force. Like they train us in the military that, it's funny because we get more training in the military on how to deal with civilian populations in other countries than our police get trained on what they do right here in our own country. So we have what's called rules of engagement, and it tells us what the escalation of force is based off what the other person's actions are. That's how much force we're allowed to use, and there's very specific requirements for the use of deadly force, up to, reaching up to that level. I mean, there's requirements up to every level of force. That's why it's called an escalation. But police just seem to be, draw guns first and ask questions later. So, and I know Evolve. I wish he did. I wish he was. He definitely has a counter viewpoint on that. He thinks that the police should be defunded and that money should be moved to other community areas that would decrease crime in other ways. In other words, take the money out of. We had this conversation with Caleb Warnock, who's running for city council here in El Paso, and Evolve here is he supports defunding the police, so he supports it. So
yeah, and I've seen that. I think that that's something that we don't necessarily agree on the way to address any problems that do exist within law enforcement. And I think that I have a problem vilifying all law enforcement officers. There's great ones out there, and where the problems exist, we need to look at things like no-knock warrants. We can look at things like ending civil asset forfeiture. We can look at things that really create problems, that remove somebody's due process, and then work on de-escalation training, promote, encourage body cams or require body cams. I think that there's different ways that we can do it. But when you look at places like Montreal, and I think it was 1969 when they had the police strike, and what happened when there was not a police presence, we need to make sure that police are not acting outside of their authority, are not abusing their power. But I don't believe that the answer is just completely defunding them.
Yeah. I think at the same time, I don't think it's a good idea to defund police departments, but I think, if you look historically, throwing money at a system doesn't make it always better either. So I know there's probably overfunded police departments out there. I mean, defunding them to a certain point. I mean, at certain police departments, I don't think El Paso is a police department that needs to be defunded at all. But I'm sure there's police departments out there that could probably afford to be defunded. But I think you're absolutely right. The no-knock warrants, that definitely has to go. Breonna Taylor would be alive right now if it wasn't for no-knock warrants.
We look at Breonna Taylor, the Tuttles in Houston in 2019.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of examples of where that really failed people.
Civil asset forfeiture is, if you got rid of civil asset forfeiture, you would essentially be defunding a lot of police departments as it stands, since they use that for funding. They use civil asset forfeiture for funding. I just did a whole podcast on that, I think last Saturday. So ending qualified immunity, I think, would do, which they have a bill in Congress right now submitted by the only libertarian in Congress, Justin Amash, that would end qualified immunity if it gets passed. Supported by 59, I think, Democrats and 1 Republican. So yeah. I have no idea why the Republicans won't get behind the ending qualified immunity.
Yeah, I think that's a really big topic right now. And a lot of people, I can see valid arguments on both sides. Number one that I think it's important to address is that qualified immunity was established by the court system. So it really is an example of legislation from the bench. So as a constitutionalist, it's a problem when there's legislation from the bench. I can understand where completely repealing it, removing that, would encourage frivolous lawsuits. And so I think that there needs to be a bipartisan discussion. People need to come together, work on legislation that will discourage frivolous lawsuits, but will also allow citizens the ability to, when their constitutional rights are infringed upon, that they can pursue legal action. So I'm not on board with completely removing qualified immunity, but it definitely we need to talk about it. We can't just say no. We can't just say, because obviously there's a problem, but we don't want to encourage frivolous lawsuits, which will discourage people from becoming police.
There's already, I could see how it could discourage people from becoming police. As far as frivolous lawsuits concerned, our 2 DAs that are running here in El Paso, they kind of said the same thing. But there's already established things in place that would discourage frivolous lawsuits. I mean, if you submit a frivolous lawsuit and you lose, then you pay court costs and you pay lawyers' fees and you pay for all this stuff. So I mean that in itself is a discouragement for. So and then the police could countersue for whatever time off of work they took in order to fight the lawsuits. There's already things established. The only thing qualified immunity was legislation that was from the bench, but it was from the bench in the 1960s, and what it was meant for was to protect police when they were beating up civil rights protesters. Yeah. So I mean it's an old leftover racist law from the civil rights movement. I mean, that's just how I see it, So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, it's like, it's a precedent that was set within the legal system. Not a law that was passed. It was never voted on by Congress. So we need to take that back. We need to re-implement our legislative system into this process and discuss it. And I do have to disagree that we won't, that there won't be a rise in frivolous lawsuits, because we look at things like employment law, where employers, if you terminate someone in a protected class, it's very likely that that person's going to turn around and sue the employer. And more often than not, that is going to end in either a settlement, or if it goes to a jury trial and they get a sympathetic jury, then it could end either way. It's likely that it's going to end with the employer paying money, and they don't really have to prove true discrimination within that process. And so when I look at things like that, employment lawyers actually call it legal extortion, and because that's what it's become. And so that's what I don't want to see happen to our police officers or anyone else who's covered by qualified immunity, who will that these frivolous lawsuits will start pouring in, and it'll cause a lot more problems in the long run. And again, I definitely think we can talk about reform. We can talk about ways to address it and address the problems with it. But I think that we need to keep it from becoming what employment law has become.
I could see that. Yeah. Another question that came up, Ruben said he had to go, but he did leave one question before. I haven't brought it up yet. He said, what's your view on drug legalization?
Was it abroad?
Yeah, he just said, what's your view on drug legalization?
So I think that the war on drugs is obviously failing our country, but I'm not for legalizing drugs on a large scale. I think that we need to address that. There's got to be other ways to address problems that arise from it. Or, there's definitely a discussion that needs to happen, but I couldn't support complete legalization of drugs.
Well, it's a decriminalization. So the libertarians, of course, we see it as a medical problem and not a criminal problem. So because it's just legislating people's right to consume what they want. So yeah, I can see that, but it's definitely something that you will, at least, I don't think you'll have to deal with legalizing all drugs when you get to Austin, but I think marijuana will definitely be one that's going to hit the table in the next couple years in Austin that you would probably have to legislate on. So so how would you vote for decriminalizing marijuana? I mean, would you vote for medicinal, for full decriminalization? How would you look at minor marijuana charges? Would you be for releasing nonviolent minor marijuana people who are in jail right now, stuff like that?
Yeah, I definitely think that the system is set up in a way that it creates criminals without the actual criminal activity, right? So I would definitely support something like the release of nonviolent, if you had marijuana or something, I would definitely support lowering the offense on marijuana possession. I could definitely talk about medicinal marijuana becoming legalized, because I don't believe that a government official should tell you that you can't pursue a course of treatment that could help you. So, there's definitely discussions that we can have about it, and we should have. And those are, let's start on those steps. Let's start on talking about those things, because when you're looking at something that has been illegal for so long, and you're just going from A to abolition, just abolishing all criminal, that's a really hard thing to just overnight, okay, this is all done. So let's take those steps. Let's have those conversations, and let's let both sides present evidence or information, and let's have those conversations, because nothing's going to be solved if we just fight yes or no. We need to talk about what could happen in between.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's where a lot of libertarians get caught up is, and I get into this with a lot of libertarians is, I believe too. I believe that people should have the right to consume whatever they want. Any consensual agreement between parties, between adults, shouldn't be against the law either. But to take a society and go from one point to the other like that, I mean, you can't say that, and I think you lose, as libertarians, we lose a lot of people by taking that extreme stance. And what I try to tell people is, this is our eventual goal, is this level of liberty for you as an individual to be able to do these things however you want. But in order to get from where we are now to there's going to be some incremental steps that we need to take to get there. Because like you said, and the reason, and it comes back to what you were saying about the police strikes in Canada. The first thing when you said that is what I thought about was, you immediately just take all the police off the streets, and of course you're going to have straight anarchy. People are going to go crazy, but that's a totally different thing than incrementally defunding and shrinking the size of police departments. And it goes hand in hand. It's the same thing. There's a path to get there. But you just can't just cut the cord like that. So welcome back, man.
Hey, how's it going? Hey, I
clear as a whistle now.
Hope I'm back. Hey, Bethany, can I, Miss Hatch, can I ask you what was the reason? What was your reason for not wanting to? I didn't freeze up. Did I?
You're crackling a little bit though. You were clear as a whistle.
Yeah, I thought I was.
No, you're not.
I thought I fixed it here.
Now you're not so much.
Am I still cracking?
Yeah. We need you clear. I need you clear and precise. If you're going to come at her about the defund police thing, I need you clear.
I couldn't make it home. I couldn't make it home. I couldn't make it home for this.
I kind of brought it
Let's
up.
see.
I kind of brought up what you had talked to Caleb about defunding, about shifting the money and stuff like that, and into other programs.
Did you hear that? I'll just be in chat.
You're all messed up. Your video's working again. Do you always have an entertaining look on your face? Because it's every time your video freezes up, you got this really interesting look on your face. Oh, he said he's just going to be in chat, so he's gonna chat. He's in a YouTube chat right now. So while he's typing, I can get to somebody else's question for you. I don't know exactly what this means, but maybe you can talk on it. Practical practitioner. It says, what is your position or thoughts on the First Amendment auditors / cop watchers? Do you know what that is? First Amendment auditors / cop watchers.
I'm not sure how. I mean, do you mean by somebody, I'm not sure, auditing the First Amendment?
I know, that's what it said. What is your position or thoughts on First Amendment auditors? I don't know what that is. What do they mean by auditing the First Amendment? Or cop watchers, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you could clarify.
First Amendment audits are largely American social movement that usually involves photographing or filming a public space. Oh, okay. So I guess he's talking about, talking about like if you go to film a police department, you're standing outside the police department filming, and they come out and tell you you can't because of security or something like that. Although you're standing in public space, you've seen there's a lot of YouTube videos on it. People doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I've seen the ones where people are filming an officer while they're in the middle of an arrest or something. I'm not sure that I have a feeling about that. It doesn't make me feel angry or happy. It just is. I think that, if you're going to film it, at least just film it and don't try to involve yourself. Because I've seen ones where somebody just will start filming and accuse the officer of things not knowing what happened. So, I mean, if you're going to film it, but I don't think that it's appropriate to involve yourself in the process. Unless, if there was something, actually just kind of film it, and then I can't really see why you would involve yourself in the process. Yeah,
I think that's what they were referring to. The same person said, I would support defund the police if the plan included refunding the taxpayers. That is an excellent point. I'm for defunding a whole lot of things, as long as it's not just the politicians getting to shift the money around to one of their other buddies. When do we get our money back? That's what I want to know. That's why I see these stimulus packages and stuff. I was like, oh, it's just a tax refund. Just getting my. They're going to borrow money from the Fed. I'm going to end up having to pay that money back. So yeah, I hope I get some of it. So here was Evolve's question. Ms. Hatch, over the last month, there have been 3 different protests: Defund the Police, Open Texas Rally, and Black Lives Matter. Could you talk about your reasoning for not showing up or coming out on any of them?
I was at one where to support the police department. I certainly support everyone's right to protest, but I didn't. So I was at one of them, but for not, I guess, as a participant of that protest, but another way just to support the law enforcement. But I don't have I support everyone's right to protest, but I'm not sure. I don't even know which days
She does have a business she's running too, so. So would you have supported the Black Lives Matter protest? I know that's what is going to be his next question.
Yeah, I support everyone's right to protest. Absolutely.
But would you have supported, would you have been in that protest? Involved in that protest?
Not if it's the one about defunding the police. I don't agree with the sentiment behind the protest, but I absolutely support the right to protest. I think everyone has a right for their voice to be heard.
Did you know about the Open Texas Rally? It was a couple months ago.
I think that one. Yeah, I think that one was back like in April.
Mm-hmm. It was.
And I think that if that's the same one, I was going to be involved in it, and then just due to conflicts, I actually had to step out. So.
Yeah, because I was kind of surprised not to see you there. I thought for sure, because me and Evolve both went to that one, and I was surprised not to see you there. I got another question. Do you know where, if you donated to Black Lives Matter, the organization, if you went to the internet site and you donated to them, do you know where that money goes?
I think it's Act Blue.
Yeah, do you know what Act Blue is?
To support Democrat candidates.
Exactly. Okay. So
and that's, the money from Black Lives Matter, how great would it be if it went to those communities?
Right. And that's what, I had to talk with some of my friends at church about this on Wednesday, because they're asking, who do you vote for? And well, we got something from Evolve, but I was telling them, I was like, you got to look at where your money's going. You got to be very careful. I mean, and I think it's like I said, I explained to them. I'm gonna have to read him. It's like I told them, and it's like I said earlier. It doesn't bother me that it goes to the Democrats' campaign because I'm not a Democrat. It doesn't bother me that where the money's going. What bothers me is the deception, and because God never deceives. There's only one deceiver out there, So why do you have to be deceptive? And that's what bothers me, and I feel that way about so many things that happen within politics. Is okay. So you weren't wrong. So, this wasn't a bad thing. But why did you have to be deceptive?
Right.
Why the deception? So, and it, okay, why'd you retract the message? So, it's just a thing. I just discovered it, and I looked into Act Blue and all that stuff. What in the world is that? I don't know what he's got going on now. It looks like, I think it's a phone plugged in, and I don't know. But yeah, it's really bothered me about politics and stuff, is that level of deception. So on that note, I think we can wrap it up here, unless Evolve has another question for you. But I usually, and I'll keep you out. Usually I'll wrap up things with my scripture on my own. For my audience, if you guys are watching, I know my guys will stay till the end just to hear the scripture. But there was one thing I talked about, Romans 13, a couple of streams back, but I forgot to mention one key point about Romans 13 is taking it in context, and that is if Paul had spoken, it had not spoken about obeying authority to the Roman Christians in Rome at that time, and they had somehow rebelled against Caesar, chances are we would never even know what the Bible was right now, because they would have been obliterated. So speaking to them about obeying authority in those times made complete sense for their own protection, because they were in Rome. Talk about being in the viper's nest. So along with, I think he spoke very eloquently, like Christ did in most of his, when he would say, like, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, but give unto God what is God's. Paul also spoke very, very eloquently in Romans 13 when he was saying that authority is for your own good. In other words, that if that authority is good and just, then it is from God. So it wasn't saying to just obey authority. It's obeying authority that is good and just. So, because we get hit as libertarians a lot because we're so anti-authority, right? So we get hit with that as Christian libertarians. They beat us up on Romans 13 a lot. But another one I wanted to go through today was in 1 Timothy. It talks about the law. And where was it? I don't know where to start usually. I'm not a pastor, and I'm not a biblical scholar or a theologian. I just do the best I can. Would you be open to a Zoom? Oh, yes, Bethany. Would you be open to a Zoom debate with Cesar Blanco?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting.
It'd be fun.
Oh yeah, it would. It would be fun, and I would moderate it. And I think I could do a pretty good job of moderation, because I could put my libertarian stuff aside for a half hour or so and do some moderation. So maybe we could reach out. He might be on here watching. You never know. I did tag him in that Twitter thing, so maybe he's seeing what his competition looks like. But like I've said, though, because they've dominated so much that seat, they've dominated it so much, for him to get on there and go head to head with you, he has everything to lose and nothing to win. So, you really got to challenge him, to come out. You know what I mean? It's the same thing for libertarians trying to get into the presidential debates. Biden and Trump have everything to lose and nothing to gain by letting Joe Jorgensen in. So what Joe's got to do is make it to where they have more to lose by not letting her in. And that's sort of, if you really wanted to debate Cesar Blanco, that's what you would have to do, is you'd have to make it to where, you'd have to challenge his ego for one, and then challenge him politically, in public, where, you start getting El Pasoans thinking, hey, I like Bethany, and those polls start showing that, then he's going to have to come forward and start challenging you. And that's the position that being the underdog, you have to kind of take. So, yeah, but I'd be willing to host it. I'm sure somebody else would definitely jump on that, though. But 1 Timothy, let's see. I'll just start at 6. Some have departed from these and have turned to meaningless talk. This is what I wanted to get at, was meaningless talk. They want to be teachers of the law, but they do not know what they are talking about or what they so confidently affirm. We know that the law is good if one uses it properly. We also know that the law is made not for the righteous, but for the lawbreakers and rebels, the ungodly and sinful, the unholy and irreligious, and those who kill their fathers or mothers, for murderers, for the sexually immoral, for those practicing homosexuality, the slave traders, the liars, and the perjurers, and for whatever else is contrary to the sound doctrine that conforms to the gospel concerning the glory of the blessed God, which he entrusted to me. So what he's saying is that the law, that we conform to this meaningless talk, that we spend so much time just talking nonsense, even when we're talking about law and legislation and stuff, and that the law really doesn't even apply to Christians. So those of us who are bound by the laws of God, the laws of the world don't even matter, because we're obeying God's law. And I think that's really significant for Christian libertarians, because those laws, the laws of the world are so substandard to the laws of God. That's why I wanted to bring that one up. So that's why he's saying that's for the other people, the non-believers. So I just do that I don't know why I started doing that, but it actually, and I've had lots of encouragement from my YouTube subscribers and stuff, that, hey, they've even reminded me, hey, you forgot your scripture, and then I have to, and I don't know that many scriptures. I still feel like I'm a baby Christian, so I'll have to flip through or look through some notes or something from church. But yeah, it's and I love the, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but I've always shared with my audience how, my campaign and my dive into politics has always been religious based. It's always been something that I felt was purposed by God. So when I was no longer going to be on the ballot or no longer a candidate, it kind of made me question my purpose. But my purpose is still the same. It's to spread the concepts of liberty. And and I thought it was interesting that I found a kindred spirit with you that felt like God was pushing you towards this purpose. And I think that's where your principles over politics have really shined, is because you're putting God in the forefront. God is first, your purpose within God. So
Absolutely.
But if there's anything else you'd like to share in closing, oh yes, I will post. Great point. Oh, okay. Wait. We still got Evolve still putting out questions now.
We've got 7 minutes left till it bumps us again.
Yeah. Okay. I'll throw them all out there and see if you can. We'll call this the speed round.
All right.
It says recently you were talking to Alan West. Biggest advice he gave you moving forward. The next question is, what is the route to victory to defeat Blanco? What do you think you must accomplish between now and November? And then, how can people connect and donate? This is a good closing statement for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
How can people connect and donate and vote for you? And final message to the people regards to what drives you and why you're putting yourself through all this.
Okay, I'm gonna have to take it question by question. So let me answer the first one I remember, and then if you could just shoot the second one back at me.
Sure, well, I can do that.
So one of the best things that Alan West left me with was telling me always make sure to tell people what you're running for and not against. And I completely agree with that. There's so much negativity in the world right now. I really, I'm running for the people in District 29, whether or not we agree on 100% of the issues. It doesn't matter if we're on different spectrums. I'm just talking about what we're running for, which is economic opportunity and growth and true representation in Austin.
Excellent. What is the route to victory? What is the route to victory you marked out to defeat Blanco, and do you think you must accomplish between now and November?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I feel like any military person would say, don't put your plan of attack out there. I mean, we've talked about it. We have a strategy. We're working on it. And it's just like, number one, get out to the people and talk to them, create connections. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, people have to know who you are. That's for sure. So hopefully we're helping with that. So how can people connect, donate, and vote for you?
So to connect, you can add me on Facebook, Bethany Hatch. Hatch for Texas is my Facebook, my Instagram, and my Twitter, at Hatch for Texas. And, you could go to hatchfortexas.com and there's a donation link. We really need, as he mentioned, my opponent has big money coming in. And so we definitely need financial support. We also need volunteers, and there's a volunteer form on there you can fill out. And then to vote, November 3rd is the election, and then we have early voting before that. So just make sure when you go in there, you hit the one that says Bethany Hatch.
And final message to the people in regards to what drives you and why you're putting yourself through all this.
I think I maybe covered it a little bit in that first response about representation, because that's what really, it doesn't matter to me, again, whether or not we agree 100% of the time. What matters is that we have true representation, that we don't have someone who believes that they should lead us in the path that they want to take us in. We need somebody who will pave the way based on the voice of the people. And so that's what drives me. And I just want to thank y'all for tuning in, and just thank you so much, Dave and Evolve, for just giving me the opportunity to chat with y'all and to reach more people. And I really appreciate the time and the conversation.
Thank you so much for coming on here and supporting us. I really like this format. I really want to continue. I've been doing this podcast for months now. It's just been me and Evolve, and I think it's now evolved into something where I really like having different viewpoints, because I mean, there's, like I said, even with Caleb, there's, I'm a hardcore libertarian, so I believe in decriminalizing all drugs and stuff like that, and eliminating the public education system. These are something that we may not agree on, and I definitely want people to know that I am not opposed to having people that have opposing viewpoints. You say how you feel about it, I say how I feel about it. There's no reason to argue. There's no reason why we can't have civil discourse, and I want to promote that more than anything else on my channel. And so if something else comes up and you feel like you would like to give a voice out, or like if we want to get your opinion on something else, that, because you never know what the media is going to throw at us next, right? We would love to have you back on, and I'll make sure I post all of your links and stuff in the description after I get done with this. So
thank you. I'd love to come back anytime.
Yeah. So yeah, something. Yeah, I'm sure some stuff will come up. We'll be in touch. And if you need any help with your campaign or anything, I'm going to be promoting the Joe Jorgensen campaign. That's going to be where a lot of my efforts are going, building the county party here in El Paso, Libertarian Party in El Paso, and supporting Joe Jorgensen's campaign. But if there's anything that I can do to help you out, be sure to reach out to me too. So I'd be happy to help you. Okay?
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Thanks, Bethany.
Thanks. Bye.
So I can't end the stream. I just end it with okay. So Evolve's gonna do a highlight cast of this for her by tomorrow. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment and tell me how you like this. If you have any questions for Miss Hatch, post them in the comments. I'll make sure that she gets those questions, and I'll answer you. If you really like us doing this kind of thing, please encourage it and let me know in the comments. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. We plan on doing more interviews. I'm going to be live next week from convention, National Convention, Libertarian Party Convention in Orlando, Florida. And so I might miss Tuesday. I might jump on briefly from my hotel room and say hi. I'll be on tomorrow morning for our normal Saturday international stream. I love you all. KIP, keep it positive. God bless you. Love your neighbor. And remember, you can always have civil discourse. Even if you don't agree with somebody, it doesn't mean you got to hate them. Love y'all. Peace out.